This is the book that I wrote, Celebrating Failure, the Power of Taking Risks, Making Mistakes, and Thinking Big. Came out a couple of years ago, kind of exciting to go from being a lowly president of an advertising agency to an author, much more highly regarded, not in the used car salesman category any longer. It's also kind of exciting. You get to go on book tours. Took a book tour with the family, stayed at some of the finest hotels in the country. You can always tell a good hotel, they put the iron right up there on the wall so you can easy access to it. That was a highlight. But I took the lessons that I learned managing the agency, working at Synergy Leadership Group as I do now, put them all into this book and tell stories about them. And I'm going to share a couple of them with you right now. But innovative leaders must not be deterred by rules. And I'll tell you how it usually happens. You meet with your organizations and you decide on a direction. And so you decide who the emissary is going to be, who's going to take that vision forward for your group. And they go out and meet with whomever you're trying to work through, and they come back. And you go, well, how did it go? And they went, well, we can't do it what we wanted to do because they have a rule against that. It like stops people dead in their tracks. Many people just think because they put up that roadblock that, oh, well, okay, I have to walk away and go back to my organization and tell them we can't do that. And I worked diligently the past 30 years to tell people that you got to ignore rules. When somebody says there's a rule, it's like an opening for how are we going to get through it. So I recently had an experience where I was put to the test on my warm and fuzzy feelings about rules. And as a publisher, or as an author, you have to promote your book. And so I was sending out query letters to publications. And I sent one to Time magazine, and they called me up, and they said, interesting title, could you send us that book? Could you Federal Express us the book? Because we want to review it and maybe put it in Time magazine. So I was beside myself with excitement. I think sometimes when you're in one position like a president and you move to an author, you really don't feel validated in the position, if you will. And I think I looked at Time magazine as my personal validation. So I sent it to him, gave him a couple of days to read it. It's a very easy read, by the way. If anybody wants to go on Amazon and buy it, it's only $9.99. But I gave them what I thought was adequate time, and a few days later, I called them up and said, so what did you think of the book? And the woman said, oh, Ralph, I loved your book. I wish I would have had the opportunity to work with you, and your book is going to be reviewed in Time magazine. I went crazy. Called mom and dad, the kids, I'm going to be in Time magazine, ran through the office doing the high fives and the down lows. Ran out to my mailbox that weekend to read all about my review, and it wasn't in there. So the next week I repeated that same ritual with the mailbox, and it wasn't in there again. So I called the lady back, and she said, oh, Ralph, I forgot to call you, which I knew immediately was not a good sign. And she said, Ralph, we're Time magazine, and we have a rule. Right away, the hair on the back of my neck went up. And our rule is that we have to be out there on the cutting edge with new releases. And your book was like 6 weeks old. And at Time magazine, we only review books that are brand new. Now, the problem is that I had a publisher who was a medium size, and they don't do advanced printings. They only do one printing. And so by the time I got the query letter going to Time, 6 weeks had passed. And so she said, it's just too late, we're not going to get you in there. So I've had a lot of defeats in my life, but that one just hit me really hard because I wanted to be in Time magazine. So I waited a couple days, and then I called her back. And I can't tell you how anxious they are to hear from first-time authors in La Crosse, Wisconsin, about your love for their policies. But I made the case that their policy eliminates a whole class of authors who work with small publishers. And I made a persuasive enough case because she said, okay, you're right, I agree, we'll review your book regardless. And the next time I ran out to the mailbox down in the lower right-hand corner was the review. So you can change rules, and if you just hear that, when you hear there's a rule, it's like your invitation to open the door and try and run through. Innovative leaders must not be intimidated. It's mental. Whether you win or lose, whatever you're trying to accomplish, it is so much all in your head that I can't say enough about it. But I was in a road race recently in Chequamegon, up north. Maybe some of you have heard of it, the Chequamegon 40. It's this grueling 40-mile mountain bike race. And it's very hilly. And about halfway through the race, I ran into that guy. That guy, a little heavier set than I am, dressed in black. I was the good guy in red. And about at the 20-mile mark, we came up on a hill, and I went right past him, climbing. And then we came down, as you always do, and the guy came flying right past me. And I thought, okay, well. So the next hill came up. I thought I'm going to get just a little bit extra and get rid of this guy because he keeps coming in front of me, and then I got to go around him. So I really hit it hard. And sure enough, the next downhill, he comes flying right past me again. And I noticed this guy was an exceptional bike handler because I'm a little more cautious on the downhills, and he had no regard for his life or limb. So we went back and forth like that for 20 miles, going. I couldn't get rid of him. And he kept continually passing me. And then you come into this finishing area, and there are thousands of people, and you come over this hill, and you're coming down, and guess who's in front again? Of course, he is. And I can hear the loudspeaker, the announcer, the race announcer say, let's have a big round of applause for two-time Tour de France winner Greg LeMond. And I knew that he wasn't talking about me. Fortunately, the race had a, wait for it, an uphill finish. And I got him at the line. But you just can't be intimidated no matter who you're going up against. And I'm going to conclude here. I'm wearing two hats today. I'm going to show you a video in a few minutes that we did for the Outdoor Recreation Alliance here in La Crosse. And it's part of the branding company that I own. We were hired to help brand the region and to create this 4-minute video that I'm going to show you. My wife happened to catch this shot that day. I'm in that helicopter doing some last-minute shots. So it was October, and the Park and Rec director here in town, Steve Caroline, remodeled the top of the bluff. Don't know if you've seen it, but it's just gorgeous. And he wanted that captured in the video. And he said he would pay for part of the financing of us hiring a helicopter and shooting it. Now, you got to bring a helicopter down from Minneapolis. They just don't have any here in La Crosse. So I was working on that. And I was working on trying to find somebody to help with the financing. And I thought of our friend back here in the room, Dave. Called Dave. Dave has more meetings than any 25 people I know. If you've ever sent him a text, you know he's never in. He's always in a meeting somewhere. So I'm trying to get a hold of Dave to finance the other half of it. I got half of it financed. And I'm not successful, and I'm thinking, I got to go for it. The temperature's getting cold. The leaves are falling off the trees. The video will look horrible if we don't shoot it. The weather's getting cold. I wanted to shoot a kiteboarder along the Mississippi River. I thought that would be cool, chasing him in a helicopter. A rock climber, some mountain bikers. So I had it all timed out where they were going to be at a certain time, and I was going to fly over and do the shoot. And so the day of, it's all systems are go. The guy has left Minneapolis. He's in the air. He's coming. I've alerted everybody this is a go. And invariably, it started raining. And so I started getting calls. The rock climber was worried about sliding off the rock. So I said we could rig it, put him on a rope or something, make it look like he's climbing, and we worked that out. The kiteboarder, the wind started to die down, and you need a certain amount of wind. The mountain bikers all of a sudden got environmental on me and said, we don't want to be seen riding on the trails and hurting the trails in the rain. So I assured them that I would shoot between the raindrops and capture only. So I got everybody lined up. They all agreed to it. Still hadn't heard back from Dave. Went up there in the helicopter. We're up there. It's pouring rain. They take the doors off the helicopter and strap you in. I'm hanging out there shooting. And I'm relatively hard of hearing. And the pilot, if you've ever been in a helicopter, they kind of do this thing, and the thing's going up and down in the wind. And he looks at me, and he says, we're going down. And I said, what? And he says, the rain is really coming down. And so we caught up with everybody. We shot the whole thing. The kiteboarder couldn't get up in the air, unfortunately. We flew back to the airport. I opened up my iPhone, and there's an email from Dave saying he'll fund the other half of it. But you got to do that sometimes when you're the leader. If you are hesitant at all, you'll never get it done, and you got to take a few risks and a few chances. And it turned out successfully. And now I'd like to show you the video